I got the thickest, heaviest foam earplugs I could, which blocked out the highest degree of sound. I think it was 33 decibels. They didn't block out everything, but they helped immensely. And then I started to realize that my sound sensitivity, the hyperacusis, was getting worse. I learned that you can't avoid sound. You can't hide from it. You can't wear earplugs all day. It will make you worse. You kind of start to retrain your body going, oh, sound is not a danger. Sound is not a threat. And that your body's been perceiving sound as a threat for so long, but it really is not. And the moments where you realize that you are starting to get better are just euphoric.
Let's welcome Monique to talk about her experience with sound sensitivity and working with Treble Health. Monique, what is the core message you have for people with sound sensitivity issues or tinnitus issues?
I would say my core message for them is that you can get better, that don't despair. Be full of hope, because I was so not full of hope before I met you and your team. And I was told by a couple different practitioners that this was all in my head, that they could not help me. A specialist with hearing told me that. A specialist with ears told me that at a very well-renowned medical facility, and I felt hopeless. So I want everyone to know that there is hope and there is something that you can do, that this will get better, and if you persevere, that you will feel better, because I did, and I didn't think I could. And if I could with my very bad sound sensitivity and hyperacusis, you can too.
What were you sensitive to? Talk to us about the day-to-day sounds that, when this was at its worst, were unbearable.
Sure. Literally, it was almost everything. I lived in an area where we were in the flight path of a minor airport and a major airport. So we had planes flying over our house every day, and the small planes that flew over so low to our home, and the sound to me would be excruciating. And it was every 3 to 5 minutes all day long, from about 7 in the morning until about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. The sound for me was unbearable. The sound of our air conditioning unit was unbearable. The sound going into a grocery store of all the freezers, of all the motors in the freezer section, was unbearable. Riding in the car, the sound of the motor, the engine, almost everything. Walking outside and hearing a car drive by, I felt like I was in a nightmare of sound, that I couldn't escape it. And I became scared of sound. So that's how I felt at my worst.
And how long did that last, of developing these symptoms and trying to figure it out on your own, going to multiple doctors, feeling like you weren't getting anywhere?
I would say it was very bad. It was very intense for 5 months. And 5 months may not sound like a long time, but on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment, when you're suffering like that, 5 months is huge. So to be rejected by doctors during that time was even worse and made the time feel even longer. So it was very intense, and I was suffering with depression because of it.
Completely understand it. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Fortunately, now you're telling your story of, resilience and successful treatment of sound sensitivity. What were those early signs of relief or hope in those 5 months? Did you have any moments where you started to feel better, or the levels of intensity of the sensitivity started to improve?
No, not until I started to meet with Dr. Ramsey and started to use the ear maskers. I didn't have any relief until then. The only relief I had was overnight, when there was not much sound going on and it was quiet, and I felt like I was starting to live for nighttime. I would just be so grateful once it was 10 o'clock at night because I knew I wouldn't have any sound to listen to anymore. And the few moments in the morning when I woke up before the plane started flying overhead and the air conditioning unit, clicked on in the summer. So I felt like I was living in this weird little bubble of time where I didn't have to be afraid of sound, and it was really a bit of a nightmare.
There's a misconception by many people who might think that this is just, overreacting, or some sort of, psychological or even psychiatric response. However, I like to use this analogy that most of us have had a migraine or know someone close to us who's had a migraine. And during those migraine episodes, we're very sensitive to light. All right, the brain is sensitive to light. It's not the eyeballs themselves that are so sensitive to light and have been affected by a disorder. It's the neurological system, it's the brain, it's the visual systems in the brain being sensitive. Now, sound sensitivity, also referred to as hyperacusis, it's not the physical ear structure that's damaged or broken, but it's the auditory nerve pathway that's hypersensitive. And I think that represents how this is not a psychological or psychiatric condition when it is sound sensitivity or hyperacusis. So let's talk about things that you tried, maybe that didn't work. One thing that comes up for me is there's often a beginner mistake when your brain and in your body is experiencing pain or discomfort or annoyance when it's surrounded by sound. The normal response is, okay, just create the quietest environment. And some people might use earplugs because when it's quieter, it hurts less or I'm less affected by it. But that can actually be a mistake because it's making the world too quiet. And for hyperacusis treatment, there's a specific protocol about how to use sound. So before you got help with our team at Treble Health, how did you approach and how did you even learn about what to do? And were you making mistakes? How did that go for those first 5 months?
I did exactly that. I was wearing earplugs. I got the thickest, heaviest foam earplugs I could, which blocked out the highest degree of sound. I think it was 33 decibels. And I was wearing them almost constantly because I was in my happy sound-free world when I had them on. They didn't block out everything, but they helped immensely. And then I started to realize that my sound sensitivity, the hyperacusis, was getting worse. So I didn't know what to do. I felt like, well, I'm happy with them in and I'm not hurting, but I know this is making it worse. And so I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do, and I was starting to do research, and I tried another ear specialist in the Bay Area who I thought was a sound sensitivity specialist, and I went all the way to the Bay Area from where I lived, and only to be told, I don't know anything about hyperacusis. He said, this is not my field. I'm so sorry. I can't help you. And then I felt really, really alone. And I thought, now what do I do? I did not know what to do, especially after consulting with an ear specialist close by who said that I could help you, but I don't think you're ready, so sorry. Oh, that was the worst because I thought I'd finally found someone, and she basically rejected me and said, no, I'm not going to help you. I would say earplugs was the main thing I was doing to escape sound. And I also ended up having no social life, no kind of leaving the house. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to. So I was isolating myself with earplugs, which was probably the worst thing I could have done.
One of the reasons we record this conversation we're having is so that you can share the knowledge and the tools and the tips you've learned working with our experts at Treble Health to people who need to learn it and need to know the information. Now, of course, some of those people might end up reaching out to us, and that's great. They're welcome to do so. We'll include a link where they can reach out if they want to get in touch. But most simply won't, or just want to learn some tips. And I want to ask you now, when you're speaking to someone who has those same types of problems, serious hyperacusis, struggling with it, but they haven't worked with a professional, can you share your experience of what you learned, something that can be related to someone else's experience from your time working with us?
Sure. I learned that you can't avoid sound. You can't hide from it. You can't wear earplugs all day. It will make you worse. So what I started to do is I started to kind of wean myself off the earplug usage. For anyone out there who is using earplugs, you can't just go cold turkey because everything will be so loud at that point. So I started to use them less and less and less. And I realized that the worsening got a little better. I also learned that listening to music, listening to sounds that are soothing in your environment, like a white noise, a pink noise machine, listening to the sound of a waterfall on those machines, listening to music at a nice normal, healthy level, something calming, not anything, you don't want to be listening to hard rock, but if you can listen to some soothing classical or some soothing country music, something that's nice and easy on your ears, your body starts to perceive sound as not a danger. And it says, oh, wait a minute, sound isn't a danger. I like the sound of the white noise. I like the sound of the waterfall. I like the sound of music. This is great. And you kind of start to retrain your body going, oh, sound is not a danger. Sound is not a threat. And that your body's been perceiving sound as a threat for so long, but it really is not. So slow habituation back into the normal sounds in your environment, soothing, nice, calming sounds, helps tremendously. I also found for myself that being around positive, encouraging people, not negative people, was also tremendously helpful. That might sound silly, but when you have people who are supporting you and loving you and who are with you on your journey as you start to get better, encouraging you, it is of tremendous help. And just being able to physically relax and say, oh, thank goodness you are here, you're my friend, you love me, you understand. Thank you for your encouragement and support. And sometimes just one person, even if it's one person in your life who is there for you, it is of tremendous, tremendous help. Those were the tips that I learned, and just listening to sounds that I enjoyed, even if it's the sound of a laughing baby that your friend has, or, you know, the sounds of birds chirping outside, something that you can tolerate. It's listen to it and find the joy in those sounds and realize that there's so much happiness and joy in sound as opposed to the sounds that are making you hurt.
It's really important. And there's a few key points that we have and pillars of the treatment that you went under, which is, hey, let's only use earplugs when you really, really need them. And there are some of those situations. For example, depending on what stage of the journey you're at, going and driving in the car when you're on the highway, that could be a sound where, yeah, using earplugs there is okay because it's too much to be there right at this time. The grocery store is another situation where at the very beginning, it's really hard to be in the grocery store. But if using earplugs allows you to go shopping and have a normal life, then that's great. That's what we want. So there's some lifestyle modifications there, using earplugs as little as possible, but using them when needed. Then there's the element of introducing sound in a controlled environment, which is what you used there, and that's referred to as, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques for hyperacusis. So that was an excellent choice, and I'm glad that we had you working under that protocol as well. The final piece, which is sort of the constant, is the sound therapy devices for the hyperacusis treatment. So sometimes those are devices like this that are worn up and behind the ears. These are referred to as either sound generators or sound therapy devices like that. Other times we have a sound machine that can be used. I have one right here. So this is a high quality sound machine that can be used on the bedside table or on the desk or the kitchen table. So what kind of sound therapy devices did you use? The ones on the ears or the ones in your room, or both?
Both. Both. I've always been a fan of sleeping with white noise on, so I was already used to that sound. Wearing the little sound devices in my ear was of tremendous help because, especially when I slept, I loved having that noise so close to my ears, and for me it was very, very soothing, very comforting. And then wearing them for so many hours, you know, prescribed hours throughout the day, I found also quite soothing. You can also get other different kinds of sounds put through them, like music or kind of tinkly noises, and I chose not to have those sounds, but just the pink or white noise, and that was okay. And I also have the exact same little sound device that you have, and I found that the sound of a waterfall was one of the most soothing sounds on there. I loved it, but there are 20, 30, 40, I forget how many sounds on there, and you can upload, download other ones onto it and choose your favorite sound that is soothing. And I still use it because I enjoy it so much, and I actually sleep with it on because I love the sound of it. When I wake up in the middle of the night, I can hear it. And to me, it just represents, sound safety. This is nice. And so both of those things helped me tremendously. And I eventually got to the point where I could ride in the car on the highway and, oh my gosh, I forgot to put in my earplugs. And I realized about 5 minutes into it, I don't have earplugs on. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. Or I was in a grocery store and I forgot to put in my earplugs. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm in the grocery store. And just using those sound therapies was so effective for me. And the moments where you realize that you are starting to get better are just euphoric. They really, really are. And you start to look at everyone else around you and say, oh, gosh, I'm like you again. I'm just like you. You're here without earplugs. I'm here without earplugs. This is great. And you just feel again, euphoric. It's amazing. And you think, wow, I've done it. I'm making progress. This is great. And it's so inspiring. I can't even describe the feeling.
I love that. And what are the most recent sounds that are loud that you're thinking, wow, I didn't think I'd be around these loud sounds again. Any others come to mind?
Leaf blowers. Oh, yeah. Just this morning, I was taking a walk in my neighborhood, and in this particular neighborhood I live in the foothills, you don't hear leaf blowers very often. But this morning, there was not one but two, and I walked right by them, and I thought, wow, I can walk right by you, and I'm okay. I don't have to plug my ears. I'm not annoyed. I don't feel upset. And I walked past them, and I had a smile on my face, and I thought, oh, thank goodness. Wow, look at how far I've come. Because a year ago, I probably would have walked the other direction and plugged my ears. So the fact that I could even walk by them was a huge. I also was singing in a choir in a giant cathedral 2 weekends ago with organ pipes right behind me. I was literally standing up against the organ pipes, and I was listening to an organist for about 5 minutes playing about as loud as he could, and I realized I could sit there and I could listen to it and I didn't have to move. That was huge for me because I am a musician. So when I was having hyperacusis, I was not doing anything in my musical career. I completely stopped. And to be able to sing in a choir and to have gigantic organ pipes behind me sounding at full blare with no pain was incredible.
Wow. It reminds me of a patient where I worked with her for about 12 months, and at the end of the 12 months, it was very clear that she was a lot better, but it was so gradual of a process that unless I reflected it back to her, she wasn't thinking that she got that much better. So she casually mentioned that she was riding on a motorcycle and she didn't need earplugs, and she was with someone else. She was in the back, and I say, Loretta, you realize what you just shared with me, right? That a year ago, your air conditioner was too loud and it was intense and it was driving you crazy. And now you're riding on the back of a motorcycle. Your hyperacusis is treated. It's done.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a glorious feeling. It just really is. It's amazing. The sense of accomplishment you feel and gratitude to people like you and your team who have helped is just immense. So I am full of gratitude to you and your team for accepting me as a patient when no one else would, and for believing in me. That was the thing that really touched me the most, was that you saw hope and you saw my strength when others did not. And I have you to thank, and I'm so grateful. So thank you.
I'm so glad that you put in a lot of work, right? You had to show up on your side of this and be consistent with the tools and the practices.
Yes.
It wasn't easy, right? And it did take time. How much time into the program did you start to actually, feel better or have a significant shift in your symptoms?
For me, I would say a couple months, which was much quicker than I thought it was going to be. And my coach, Dr. Ramsey, kept, encouraging me and saying, hey, you're getting better, you're getting better. And like you said, I wasn't necessarily noticing it all the time, but she would say, oh my goodness, look how far you've come. So I started, about 2 months into it, and I started to notice little things that weren't bothering me anymore, like riding in the car, like the sound of a heater on, because it was in winter, or the sound of a car passing by. I was able to go into a grocery store and maybe only use earplugs for a few minutes instead of the whole time. So they were gradual changes. It isn't an overnight bam, you're better. No, it's little tiny changes, but those little changes add up over time, and it just keeps building on the success you've had. So after 2 months, then at the 3 month point, it was even better. At the 4 month point, it was even better, where people were coming up to me and saying, you look great. You look fantastic. What are you doing? You're all better? So it didn't take much time for people to notice that, oh, wow, she's got a smile on her face again. Wow, she's singing in a choir. I didn't think you could sing in a choir. Are you okay? So it was because when other people start to notice that you're looking better and sounding better and feeling better, then you really know, hey, my happiness, my progress, my my getting better is showing to other people, and they're noticing it. So yes, it does take work, but I didn't find it hard work. I found it pleasurable to be listening to soothing sounds, to be listening to things gradually. And if you're listening to things you enjoy, that is a pleasurable form of treatment. And it's, it's not like you have to listen to horrible things. You're listening to nice things. You're listening to calming, soothing sounds, and just knowing that that's helping your hearing is just a great relief.
I love that. Monique, thank you for sharing. And for anyone who wants to have a program or an experience similar to Monique's, feel free to reach out to our team at Treble Health for sound sensitivity or conditions like tinnitus and hearing. We'll be able to help you with that. We'll put a link on the screen right there where you can schedule that. I still have this device I was demoing, this sound therapy device in my ear, so I'll take that off. Monique, what are your last words here for the tinnitus community? We have people who are in their first months of intense hyperacusis, who are also in need of help, similar position to where you were. They're looking at you and they're thinking, I don't even know if this is real. She seems so much better. What would you say to them?
I would say it is real. It's very real. I would say keep with what you're doing. Be persistent. Hang in there. Know that everyone who also suffers from what you suffer from is there with you, even though you may not be able to see them. Know that they're there and they are going through what you were going through, and you are not alone. That is what I really want to put out to you, is you're not alone. There are so many of us who are dealing with this, and it's kind of like a silent community, no pun intended, where a lot of people don't talk about it, or they're too embarrassed to talk about it, or they've been rejected by doctors and friends that they don't want to bring it up anymore. But find those people who love you and encourage you, who will be there for you. Know that success and help is possible. Relief is possible. Getting better is possible. Yes, it will take some time, but it is possible. And I was hopeless. I was depressed. And now I am neither. So if I can go through this process as bad as I was, have hope. I am here to encourage you and give you hope, and to say to just stick with it. And just day by day, celebrate your wins. Celebrate the littlest thing. Even if it's like I was in the grocery store for 30 seconds without earplugs. Write it down. Have a notebook where you celebrate your wins, and review your notebook and see all the little things you've accomplished during the day. When you start to feel maybe a little, I don't know if this is going to work, read your notebook and say, oh, I have 5 pages of successes. Yay me! And share those with people who love you and say, look, I did this today. Isn't this great?
Thank you so much, Monique. Guys, you heard it here first. Hyperacusis treatment is not only possible, but it's within reach for you. Monique, thanks so much. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dr. Ben, so very much. I'm so full of gratitude. My most heartfelt thanks.
If you're feeling uplifted and encouraged by Monique's story, I recommend that you schedule a free consultation with our team at Treble Health. On the screen right now, you'll see this pop-up appear where you can book a free consult and get connected with our team of experts. We're here to help for your sound sensitivity or hyperacusis, so please reach out and give us a chance to help you. Have a nice night.